Welcome to my channel. This is an 04 model VY Holden Calais. This is the supercharged model, but the running gear on these are mostly the same. I'm going to be changing the lower control arms on both sides. That's the part number for the right side. That's the part number for the left side. And I will also be changing the radius rod bushes. That's the part number for that. That's what they look like. These control arms come with the bushes already installed and the new ball joint. This is what it does and the reason why I am changing them. I'm going to start by loosening the wheel nuts while it's still on the ground so the wheels don't turn. Now the other side. And I forgot to mention, before you start this job, chock both back wheels. Now jack it up and put it on stands. And jack up the other side. Let the jack down slowly. And you can get the jack out of the way. And take the wheels off. And the other side. And get that wheel out of the way as well. And this is why I like to keep a couple of old steelies around. I'll lay them under instead of the wheels that came off the car, just for added safety. in case one of them stands give out. These old steel wheels are good for doing skids and for a bit of safety. I'm going to take the pin out, the ball joint. You don't have to take this off, it just makes it easier to maneuver it around a little bit. It's out of the way. This is a 19mm. And don't undo it all the way. Just give that a tap with a hammer because it's tapered inside there. So tapping that will make this fall out. Like that. Just putting the nut back on there, just so I know where it is and where it goes. The nut for this ball joint is a 22mm. Make sure you get this nut all the way off, and just put it on a couple of threads just in case you hit it. Because if you're not changing the whole bar like I am, you will need the ball joint again, and you don't want to get it caught up on the end of the threads once you crack the ball joint out, because it'll just rotate on you and you'll have a heap of trouble. But if it does rotate, you can always put a jack underneath it, pushing that up into the hole, making it seat properly, and you should be able to get it to come undone then. And just like the ball joint for the steering, if you give it a tap, sometimes it takes a bit more than a tap, but if you hit there, it should just come loose. I don't know how I'm going to go with the camera in the way. Making sure that you don't hit the brake sensor just there. There's a brake sensor just there, so make sure you don't hit that. Gonna have to move the camera out of the way so I can hit it harder. If you don't want to bash your ball joints with a hammer, you can always get the tool to do it. This one covers just about every ball joint, but I'm just trying to show you how to do it without one of these, just in case you don't want to go to the expense of getting one of these. You can pick them up in automotive shops and on eBay, places like that. They're not hard to find. Then you've got this one here. It's a 30mm. Nut and a washer. Don't go losing them, you will need them. Now you've got the other end of that one, the 24mm. Which is extremely tight. Then you've got 4 nuts here. These ones are a 13mm. Don't lose them nuts, you will need them again. That's the old one out of the way. Now to get this out, come forward, down and back, just like that. Don't lose the washers on there either. There's a bolt up in here. To get this out, there's a nut on the back. It's a bit hard to see on camera, but the nut is just up in here. It is a 19mm. Just got it loose and then the bolt started turning. So because it's turning, I'm going to use a crack bar with a 3/4 on it. There's that nut. It's just coming out with its own threads. You should be able to work it out far enough that you can wiggle it the rest of the way. I'll use a screwdriver or something to get the bolt out the rest of the way. Stuck again. See if I can get it out with the threads out the rest of the way anyway. That's that bolt. Just put it with its nut. Now this should just come out. Take the nut the rest of the way off the ball joint. There we go. And to get the ball joint the rest of the way out, there it goes. I've just got to get it past the edge of the rotor, because that part there will hit the rotor. That's that out of the way. It's got it's the right hand one on there. So here's the new right hand side one. We've got these little plastic caps on them for protection. Have to get that in past that rotor. There we go. It's a little bit difficult with the camera in the way, but I've got it in there anyway. Just put the nut on so it doesn't fall back out. Now to get the other end in where it needs to be. Just pull out and it should slide in there. Just like that. I need to line the hole up to get that bolt back through. But before I put the bolt back through, I'm just going to put a little bit of grease on there. There's not a lot on there, just a little bit. Now to get this to line up, you need to bring the whole thing forward because it's pushing back and it gets stuck. There we go. Put the nut on. Okay, that's tight. Now to get that ball joint into place, Going to push up a bit with the jack. And that should be enough to stop it rotating while you tighten it. And if it still rotates, just jack it up a little bit more. Now that's as tight as I can get that with the steering disconnected. So at this point we can move the jack. Now I'm going to give both ends a clean up. I've got a little bit of grease. Swap that around. And the other side. Now in the front first. And then go back. Just like that. So there's the old one. And the new one. The bent lip part goes to the bottom, so it goes in that way. And make sure that you have that washer on first. Just like that. Then you have your 4 nuts that hold that in place. Now these are 13mm. They're all tight. Put the nut back on. And that's still a 24 because it is the same nut. Now the back with its nut and washer. That's tight. Now that the back is tight, I'm going to check the front again. Yep, got a little bit more out of it. Now to put the steering back on. And that's still the same 19mm that it was before. I'm putting a new pin in. This one's obviously too long, but it's a good thick one to go through the hole so there's no slop. You can always cut off excess, but you can't make up the thickness for the hole. You don't want a loose one in there. Now I'll check the lower ball joint. It's hard to get a good shot with the camera, but it's just up here. Right, now that's tight. This is the other side. Should be the same, but we all know it's never the same. It's always a problem or an issue. Take that pin out. And I've left the nut on there again, just in case I miss and hit it. I don't want to wreck the thread on that. There it goes. Now for the ball joint. even though it makes it hard to see with the camera. I'll just put that in place for the moment, just to get that ball joint loose. And it wasn't even that tight. That nut should have been tighter than that. So I just moved the camera out of the way. It was in the way a little bit. So I've just put the steering on again. You won't be able to see what I'm doing. You know what I'm doing. I've showed you. It's just I can't hold it and undo it at the same time. There must be either damaged threads or just the dirt on the end of it, which is why you make sure you get the nut all the way off and then put it on a couple of threads before you start hitting it with a hammer, just in case you hit the threads with the hammer. You don't want to damage them, which could have been what's already happened here. Now I've got that loose, I can get this out of the way so you can see what's happening again. Just like before, take the nut all the way off. Just put it on a couple of threads. Because when you start hitting that, you don't want to miss and hit the threads. But I don't suppose it really matters. Like I said on the other side, I'm changing this whole bit, including that ball joint. But if you're only changing your bushes, you will need that thread. The ball joint is not released yet. I'm going to undo all the others first and I'll do that last. Seemed to be a bit tighter than the other side. And just like the other side, this is 24mm. If your socket doesn't get over the end of that, you can always use a ring or a long reach, which this one doesn't. Because the socket doesn't fit on this, I'm using a ring. Should be able to use the ratchet to go the rest of the way. Yep. try not to slip off and bash the camera. And the 413 mils. And that should just come off. Just like that. And just like on the other side, this should just go forward, come out of here, and then down and back. Let's see if it comes out. Stuck in there. We'll have to put the nut on and give it a tap. Or maybe it's just stuck in there really good. It doesn't want to come out of there. Man, it doesn't want to come out. It seems to have moved a little bit. I got it. And now forward and then back. Just like that, it's out. Bit of rust in that one, that's why it was stuck. Now for the nut, that is up in there, and the bolt on the opposite side. So again, I'm using a 19 on this side and a 3/4 on the other side. There's the bolt. Now to get this lower ball joint to release. Goes. Now I've taken the nut off. Now I should be able to push it forward to get that end out. just like that. There we go. Just like the right hand side, but this is the left hand side, so it has the LH on there, and it has that little protective cap to protect that rubber there. Need to get that in there. Just like that. I'll put the nut on that so it doesn't fall out. And to get the other side in, bring it forward and it just slides in. And just like the other side, a little bit of grease. And the nut. And that's tight. And that end's not yet. I'm going to put the steering back on so I can tighten that up. And put the pin in, set off the excess. Bend it around. And just the same as before. Push that up with the jack a little bit. So it doesn't rotate while you tighten it. There we go, nice and tight. Got the jack out of the way. And just like on the other side, give these a bit of a clean up. So notice this side has a washer, but this one doesn't. And going by how there's dirt on the outer edge of that, but not on the inner, I'd say it's been a while since that's had a washer on it. So today I'll be finishing the job with no washer, but I will have to order a washer and just put that in later. It's easy to put the washer in, it's just undo the nut in the center here, undo the 4 nuts there, take off that bit, slide the washer on, and then replace the 4 nuts and the one in the middle. So a little bit of grease. On that. And the other end. Let's go in first. That slides in there like that. It's easy just to take that off, slide the new washer on, and then put it all back together. I don't have to pull it off from the other end. Not to just put a washer on. And just like the other side, that little bent bit there goes to the bottom. So it goes on that way. Just like that. Then the 4 nuts. And the 5th nut. We'll tighten up the 4 nuts first. And again, this is a 13mm. All 4 of them tight, and the 24mm on that one, and then because there's no washer, the nut goes in too far and I can't use the socket anymore. Unless of course I change to a long reach or something like that. Okay, we'll do the other end of that and then come back to that one. Now the nut on the back. And try not to punch the camera. But I think that's pretty tight now anyway. Yep, that's tight. Now I'll check the front. Okay, that's pretty tight now. Now let's put the wheels back on. And they're not tightened properly, just tightened enough to put down on the ground. Now the other side. And just like the other side, it's only tight enough to put on the ground so I can tighten it up better. Now I'll pull the steelies out. Don't need them under there anymore. And get the one on the other side out. Put the jack underneath. Just have to jack it up enough to get the stands out. Obviously one at a time. I'll let it down slowly. And let it down slowly. Tighten the wheel nuts. I'm just checking to make sure I didn't miss any. Now the other side. Just check them, make sure I didn't miss any. And whatever you're using to chock your wheels, I'm using bricks. Don't forget to remove them. And the other side. Missus!
Seatbelt on! Looking for one in my
Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Hope this helps. See you next time.
That would have been a good experience in him.
And Dad's like, look at how proud he is.
There you go.
Wow, smell it though. Sorry them all up.
Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. See you next time.
He's recording.